Welcome to the Asian Connection Mortgage Podcast, where we connect Asian Canadians together to talk about anything related to real estate, mortgages, and finances, based out of Vancouver. Our host is John Lee, mortgage broker with Arise Mortgage. Grab a bubble tea and enjoy the episode.
Welcome everyone to another episode. I am here with a special guest today, Iven. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you, John. Thanks for inviting me here.
Yeah. So based on your lovely background, so for those who aren't watching this, they're listening to this on podcast. Iven has this beautiful backdrop of his website, Iven C Law Corporation. So yes, Iven is a lawyer. And before we start, perhaps you can just share with us a little bit about you, your practice, and how you got into becoming a lawyer.
Well, interesting as a segue, how Asian are you? So, you know how, Chinese parents often say to the kids, yeah, there's only three occupations you can ever be when you grow up. Doctor, or whatever, accountant, lawyer. Well, some of those three things could be a variation of the thing. But my parents never actually never guided me towards what they want me to be. It was
Wow.
more, you decide what you want to do. We trust that you can find what you want, and then we're fine with that. So they're a little mix. They're not quite that typical Asian kind of parental type of thing.
Yeah.
And for me, the more common thing that can be tied in with the Asian culture is this reverence to teachers, right? And so when I was, and that it's very similar to me as to how, and for me, how it became to be that I became into law. It was great. I took a Law 9 class. One of these things, oh, I don't want to take biology, I'll take law. So I took Law 10 in grade 9, and the teacher was very inspiring, and I was inspired by him. And then I thought, gee, I never thought about it, but I think I want to be a lawyer right from grade 9.
Grade 9. Wow, that's early.
A Law 10 teacher was quite the inspirational guy. It wasn't just read a book and regurgitate and listen. He would make our class divide up into four different sides of an argument and argue as a group. So all kinds of things, whether it's should it be guilty, should it be not guilty, should it be lenient or not lenient, and made us argue in the classroom. Made us realize just how nuanced the law is. It's not black and white.
Did you join a lot of debate teams as well in high school?
Yeah, well, in grade 12, I was in a debate team. Probably but only grade 12. Didn't know the debate stuff.
Yeah. Wow. It's good that you found your passion already in grade 9. Grade 9, I was just trying to figure out what clothes to wear.
Yeah, the typical 15-year-old wouldn't have laws somewhere there, but but it was you never know, because you have a very inspiring teacher, and who just made me think of everything. And like then, my dad already was watching Law and Order, his favorite show. It was already on. It's one of those longest lasting shows.
Yeah.
I watched it with him too, but it took on a new meaning after that. Because okay.
It's not as dramatic in real life, probably.
No. Although first year that I did law, I did do criminal law, so it was very similar. And I imagine the scenes when I'm at a prosecutor's office negotiating, or they're trying to make my client take a plea. Why don't you plead guilty, save everybody some time, just put him in jail. What do you care? I thought of the show.
Well,
Yeah.
I have more questions about
Yeah.
how Asian you are, since we're on this topic.
Yeah.
I've never had bubble tea with you, so I don't know about this, but what's your favorite bubble tea drink?
Oh, well, gee, anything with grass jelly. Well, that sounds
Grass jelly?
Yeah, grass jelly, and make a plug-in for any particular one, but the grass jelly that they make at the cha time, yeah.
Oh, that's my favorite too, with the roasted milk tea.
But yeah, I've tried them with other ones. Not too little silky, not too, but it's a nice amount of smooth and tenderness and chewiness.
Yes.
So anyways.
Yeah, they do really have good grass jelly, and sometimes there are days where I'm just too lazy to chew, so I don't want the pearls. It's like my jaw is too sore, so let's go for the grass jelly so I can just like slip it down.
That's fair enough.
Favorite dim sum item? What's your must-have when you go?
Well, another plug on another restaurant called Dynasty. This is literally a
Oh
block from
yeah.
my
Yes.
office, but they have I don't know, and this makes me think about it. Bitter melon minced pork stir fry into a little dish for dim sum. Now, bitter melon,
Oh,
liang gua, right?
yeah.
So not too many people like it, but if you do like it and you've had it, a very small percentage, and definitely only Chinese.
Yeah.
Like it. So very, very. They have a really good one there. If I go there, I must have it. So,
Oh, that's one type of food that I just can't have. I'm surprised you call it 冷瓜. I thought it's 腐瓜.
yeah, yeah, which is like
It's the same thing,
it's the same thing. But
but
apparently,
冷瓜 just sounds better. Like
I
you're
grew up with
tricking a little kid to like try
I grew up with
it.
until someone told me, well, the proper name is Langua. So
Oh, okay.
I call it that. The kid, my grandparents, my mother, my parents, my grandparents call it fupa.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, right.
And do you do lots of traveling around Asia? If so, where's your favorite place to go in Asia?
I don't do a lot of traveling. Maybe that's not the Asian in me, but my favorite place to go is somewhere with lots of beaches and speak English.
Cool, lots of beaches and speaks English.
Yeah,
I would
it's
say maybe the Philippines then.
well, and well, that's okay. For me, it's like every single island of Hawaii doesn't matter which one.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
How good.
Oh, that is good.
Yeah.
And then do you eat those Hong Kong buns?
You know, yeah, yes. Well,
You
two of
do? And what do you have a favorite one?
well, the curry ones. Yeah.
Oh, the curry beef.
Yeah, any kind of curry beef puff pastries, they have them at all. It doesn't matter which Chinese one you go to.
Yeah.
They all have as a standard fare, as an alternative to the char siu, which is,
Yeah.
barbecue is a little too sweet, I think. So,
Mm,
uh,
okay, got it. And I find it interesting because the curry beef, like you can't really go wrong with it because I think
yeah, yeah.
somehow maybe the curry is just consistent with all bakeries. They have this like the same powder or something.
You might use you might use bold beef, it still doesn't
Yeah.
taste.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Well, no,
know.
that's great. Now I kind of get understanding of where you're at and
Yeah,
how Asian you are. And but today we are going to be talking about more residential tenancy laws. And I know this is an area that you have lots of knowledge in. So for those who are landlords or you're renters, like they're trying to get into the rental market, can you just maybe just provide like a brief overview of some of the key things that both landlords and tenants should be aware of?
yeah, very good. Yeah, true to the kind of Asian nature of my clientele. Most of them that are the generation of my parent generation or mine, they come to well, when I started practice, it was 1997, actually 96. I did criminal for a year, and then 97, all the Hong Kong immigrants came, and the first thing they want to do is buy a house. Buy a house. They don't want to rent. So most of my
Gotta get
clients,
land, right?
yeah. So the most of my clients are actually landlords. So I do have a sense where most of my clients are landlords, asking questions about legislation, how does laws affect them. Landlords are particularly interested in ideas about how to get rid of big tenants, how to use properties for their own purposes, when they don't want a tenant anymore. And then three, how to make more money out of their investments home. And then if they're not making as much money, how to make more money. So a lot of my clients tend to be more of a landlord interest oriented. So a lot of my practice is get dedicated towards landlords. But because of the experience I have with litigation and arguing and looking at evidence and documentation, so when a tenant comes to me, then I can represent them just as well because I know what a landlord would be thinking about. I would know certain things that a tenant should be asking and information to gather or to question about motives and intentions and evidence to prove an intention as effectively as if I was a landlord representative. So that being said, so the biggest things, especially for is price, dollar, value, figures. How much is rent? How much is how much can it be increased? and how much and what are the situations and when the tenant, for example, argue or request or ask for something less, like lower the rent or something like that. So those questions come up. So for a tenant, of course, they need to know that it's not up to the landlord to decide whatever and whenever they want on a year-to-year basis. There's a fixed finite rent allowable increase every year, and nobody's allowed to contract out of it. So just look up Residential Tenancy Act in every particular year, find out what is the allowable rent increase, and the landlord is not allowed to go above it. They can't agree to do a side contract with the tenant. Hey, if I gave you a garage, can you increase the rent? They're just not allowed to do an agreement to get back out of the legislation. So that's the first thing. It's finite, it's registered, you can't change it. However, I do want to point this out because it may tie into mortgages, right? Exactly your practice. There's a recent decision, I don't have the exact citation, from the Residential Tenancy Board, which is causing a lot of people to, depending on who you are, a lot of uproar. And one of which the landlord was able to increase the rent substantially higher than, I think it's 3% right now, 3 point something percent right now per year. To match the amount that the landlord needed to break even when it comes to their mortgage payments.
Oh,
Landlord
okay.
was able to prove hardship based on the variable rate mortgage they had and based on how much they earned and how much they were able to pay. They were at a loss every month with their investment rental. They just could not afford to pay. And they used those reasons to justify and allow for an increase that was much more substantially higher than what the allowable interest rate is allowed. Later on, if I can give you the citation. I don't have the exact spreading, but the words was there that they use special circumstances. Of course, I know that, I have clients that have tried to do the same thing. And I would advise them, no, your situation doesn't allow itself to allow it. So if a landlord has several different properties and have other sources of income and doesn't rely exclusively on the rental income from that home to sort of pay the mortgage, they don't have savings elsewhere, no disposable income elsewhere, no other passive income. You have only one house. This is the only mortgage you have. Both their parents' owners' incomes are not enough to pay. So you might, it's very specific circumstances, but think about it from the tenant's point of view, right? Like, not only from the landlord, but the tenant's point of view. All of a sudden, oh no, they just allowed an increase more than what the legislation allowed. So I'm sure, I don't know anything whether it's appealed or not. I can imagine if the wherewithal and financial abilities to appeal that decision on behalf of the tenants. But yeah, that's significant, right?
Yeah, that's very interesting because how can you it's very difficult to prove that you have financial hardship when you are a landlord. And then the conception of people in general BC is like, how can you be broke? How can you prove that you're broke when you have a rental property that's worth at least like $500,000 or $600,000, right?
Yeah.
So that's very interesting, and
Yeah.
I think it sounds like a one off, but I think it is possible if you hit those specific
Yeah.
points.
Yeah, evidence from a mortgage broker who can be counted on. Well, if this person applied for a mortgage and sufficient and refinance would then be enough to pay. Well, no, every single bank would have a similar interest rate higher than 1% that what they had from 5 years ago. Every one of them is like 4.5 or 5 onwards, and you can be like an expert on that.
Yeah.
And then you can say, no matter where I go, I just cannot borrow money to replace what I have, and here's the income I have, and I can't get a mortgage elsewhere, and I have these things and to pay, and it's push comes to shove. You're asset rich but cash friendly, cash
Right.
poor.
Yeah.
You have no income to pay. You relied upon the tenant's rent to pay for those things. And maybe 4 years ago it was fine. You have lots of room, but then everything changed all of a sudden. So
Well,
yeah.
speaking of changes, so besides this new citation that you refer to, are there any like actual major changes
Oh yeah.
to the BC tenancy laws recently?
One of the biggest ones is the the 4 months notice that's required instead of the normal 2. It just came up, I think it came into effect about a month or 2 months ago, that if a landlord wants to take over a property for its own family's, close family's use, spouse, children, right? And then they have to
Mhm.
give 4 months notice instead of 2.
Mhm.
And the 1 month's compensation is still there, but the amount of notice is now 4 months. And it's I think it and the idea about taking over a property for their own use, there's the requirements to get to that point. Now they have a special rule, a special web portal that landlords are required to register. So they register themselves onto the portal as a landlord, and this is the properties that they own. These are the ones that have tenants. And every time that they want to use this particular reason for their
Mhm.
own use, they have to use this portal to register and indicate and fill out a form to apply to the residential tenancy board to get approval to use that reason
Mhm.
as so if the landlord, for example, types in the application form, oh, my cousin wants to live in this home, it'll get rejected. Your cousin's not a close family member. And then
Oh, okay.
they can't even use this as a reason. Oh, then my cousin nephew, it doesn't matter. No, no. Is it your friend? Is it your spouse? No. Is it your kids? No. Well, is it your then they're almost not allowed. So they can't just thinking it's a family member, an uncle, a nephew, a niece, and they gotta go through the portal now. Once they've registered, maybe they did have a family member that was able, or maybe they got rejected 3 or 4 times. Like each time they come up with a different person and a different reason for their own use, they get
Mhm.
rejected. There's a record kept. The biggest thing for me or takeaway is that now they want to keep tabs on landlords, whoever want to use this reason, so that if they tried 6 times and each time they use a different reason, then it's gonna look like they're not. It's a bad faith kind of a thing.
Yeah.
They're not really trying to use the right reasons to actually get someone moved out.
Eh,
So it's a history. Yeah.
So for those who do get caught, what's the repercussion? Do you know?
Well, for me, when I represent landlord clients who are trying to evict the tenant, I said your first shot is your only shot. Don't try ever. Number two, you're already at you failed once because technical reasons, substantive reasons is not the reasons that you purportedly say, but they found out that there's another reason. There's an ulterior reason. You have
Yeah.
other ways to do it. Your credibility is shot as a homeowner. When it comes to any subsequent request, you're starting from negative balance in terms of credibility. You
Mhm.
know, if you ever want to do it once, and don't think that this is to put your best foot forward. Use your best evidence if you can. Don't prepare it's just like, oh, if this doesn't work, I have a backup plan. Do not approach it this way. You want to do this, you better have all your eggs in on one basket and do one shot, because if you've lost, your credibility is shot.
Mhm. What would you say would be some like misconceptions that people may have about the tenancy laws in BC?
Well, I think the thing is that, oh, don't bother going because the board members are pro tenant. It doesn't matter what you say, they're gonna rule it for the tenant anyways.
Yeah, actually, that's what I think too. It's very leaning more towards tenant, but I guess that's not the case.
Well, here's the thing, that the consequence to that kind of thinking is that then don't bother, right? Or
Mm,
be afraid of it. So what I would say is that, well, and this may be touched into the tangent of the idea that landlords generally have more to lose,
mm,
right? And generally they have more funds, discretionary funds than a tenant. It depends on how you fight.
right.
Uh, you don't skip steps. You prepare like you're losing your entire fortune on this one tenant, even though it's like what, $3,000 a month, and you said, oh, you know what? It's only 1 year's rent. If I had to pay compensation, if they found out this is a landlord thinking, oh, if I'm found to be liable for not evicting because of bad faith, it's only what, $36,000. That's fine. I've got whatever millions of dollars is fine. So the idea is that you want to fight it, you take it seriously, and you spend the money to deal with it.
Mm,
So it's not cheap. I just say to my clients, look, the value dollar of what you're fighting for may not be worth it compared to what you pay me. You 36, you know what, you pay me like $7,000-8,000 to fight this, and then you win a judgment, and you're likely to win because I prepare like, what do you need this thick document for? Well, why do you need expert opinions? Well, everything is expert. I do not rely on you thinking you think it's worth that much, or your cousin says this or that, and your family member's a builder, or he wants to build that home, and this is how much it costs. This is how long it takes. Experts get expert evidence, pay for them all. The tenant can't argue with an expert when it comes to, that's mold. I shouldn't be allowed to pay. Well, I have an expert that says not mold. You guys didn't wash it. It's just scum from your scope. So things like that. So the idea is that you spend the money, you win. You don't prepare, you lose. But so it is slanted against the tenants for the tenants, because it's meant to help tenants a lot. But rules are there, and you can fight it. It's winnable. But you got to start from the first application. Don't wait till the second or third, and then try to hire a lawyer to fix it, because they're already at a negative.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good tip. I like the way you said it, where you need to spend the money to get the evidence and get the experts in. So I would say that's probably a good tip that many people may not think about, or it could perhaps view as like a secret weapon for landlords to hopefully win a case. Are there other things that you would advise tenants or landlords
Yeah.
that they may not know about the law or their tenant right,
One of the
and they should be able to want to utilize it to their benefit?
Yeah, well, one of the crucial things that I find, because if I represent a client, it's at a hearing, and we're allowed to question the other side. As a tenant, I'm a right to question the evidence, question intentions of the other side. As a landlord, I'll question the tenant. As a tenant, I'll question the landlord. You have a right to cross-examine, and through the cross-examinations, you come out with inconsistencies and incredibilities and contradictions, and reveal it in the other side. And you can win cases just on questioning alone, without even looking at the evidence. And that's the key, like for both tenants and landlords. The powers of a hearing is not just to sit there and tell your case, but to question the other side. And effective cross-examinations, get admissions of statements, admissions. You know what you want them to admit, and you ask the certain question in a certain way that they have no choice but to answer the way you want it to answer. So for an example, and this may be one of those cases, I have a tenant who was being evicted by the landlord, just saying that their son from LA is coming up and is going to live in the house.
Mhm.
And I said, here's the gentle question. So your son in LA, what status does he have there? Oh, he's a citizen there. Oh, and what job does he have there? Oh, he's working as a trading or a whatever, finance guy. And what's the company that he works at? Da 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 da. And so has he given his notice to resign yet? I don't know. Has he got any status here in Canada? He gave up Canadian status. Has he applied to come to Canada? Has he got a visa? And then I questioned the intentions and long-term plans of the landlord. All of a sudden, look, Your Honor, or Madam Arbitrator, there's no concrete plan in place. They haven't made plans to leave. They don't have plans to stay, and therefore, don't believe this tenancy eviction notice is completely thrown out the window. I question intention, question evidence to prove intention, and if I find something that's contradicting, right? So here's his letter. His letter says he's coming. Yeah, but he can't, even if he wants to. He doesn't have a visa. So,
Right.
so, yeah, so these are examples, and it doesn't matter which side, you just question. And I think that tool of cross-examination to prove intention is really, really important. And not very many people know that.
Yeah. No, I love stories. That's a really good one.
Yeah.
Are there any other memorable stories
Oh
of a
yeah.
tenancy dispute that you've encountered and you don't mind sharing? Because this is really
Yeah.
fun, because we all we hear all of these, but sometimes we don't believe it, but you actually get to experience it firsthand, and to defend your client.
Well, a really good case, and it brings into this whole idea of like nowadays, social media is everywhere, right? People and in court and in law, evidence from social media is more relevant nowadays than ever before. Nobody would have, oh, where show me that picture of that event happening. Well, physically, I don't have photo albums anymore in which to show you a book. And oh, but there's a post. I posted it on Facebook when it happened. The amazing. So this touches into that plus residential tenancy. So I had a client who was a landlord, and they wanted to rent a place, not a rental place, take over a house so that their daughter can go closer to university.
Mhm.
So it's for the daughter. That's legitimate. Okay, tenants get out. The tenant put up a bit of a fight. They had some things, but eventually they moved. And the tenant moved or found a rental place about 1 or 2 blocks away from the actual place they were renting. And for a period of a month, that tenant who left would come back to the house and dig around the garbage and take pictures of the garbage and would knock on the neighbors' doors and say, "Hey, did you ever notice anybody living in the house next door?" And get statements and pictures. And once and this is caught by the cameras that was installed, surveillance cameras on the house. The tenant took a little stethoscope type camera, came up to the front door, put it through the door hole, and took pictures of the inside of the house as part of his evidence in his case, saying that my client did not take back the house and did not occupy it for their family as stated, and therefore it's a bad faith eviction, and therefore they demand 1 year's worth of rent. So that was the claim. And so my client's daughter was going to university. I don't know about you, but when I was in university, I had all kinds of time. I studied at weird hours. I go to a library that was 24 hours. I had friends and we did study groups at the university. I come home at different times. My parents had a Chinese grocery store, a very typical Asian thing. But I knew when rush hour was when all hands on deck, everybody needs to be home to help out with the rush hour. I knew when dinner's ready, if I wanted to be home for dinner. Otherwise, I'm free to organize my time. And being home, not being home, going studying. So that was the same thing with my client's daughter. Like they're not 9 to 5 job. It's like you study and you come back in. My client's daughter didn't cook. Don't have disposable wrappers from Shoppers Drug Mart or Superstore. If she threw away garbage, and she ordered Uber Eats, Uber delivery, and when it's ordered, and then she collects all her garbage and goes back to mom and dad's on the weekends, dumps all the garbage at mom and dad's. One shot, done. No evidence of living there based on physical garbage evidence. The neighbors never saw her because it's different times and different hours. She didn't drive. She took transit, no car parked in front. So when it comes to evidence, oh my God, when we looked at those photo evidence of this lady with this long stick looking around, digging around and putting a camera through the door, the residential tenancy part, they're not the police. And they
But
don't.
that sounds so creepy though. Like, and you can imagine your client is like the
Creepy.
daughter as a girl living by herself in a house, and then there's someone snooping around, going through garbage and putting a camera through the door.
And it didn't look friendly either. It was just
Wow.
didn't look
Wouldn't that be like if they were able to produce that evidence, would that work? Because they are trespassing
and they
in order
already
to
and they
get
admit
the evidence.
they already admitted it under oath. Yeah, that's me. I got the evidence. Yeah, but the thing is, what are you gonna get? How much money are you gonna get? That's not,
Right. But I
uh,
don't know. Would that be argued that the evidence were taken illegally?
and well, they're not criminal lawyers. I mean, there's not a criminal tribunal. They're
Oh, okay.
of evidence. They're not gonna decide this is trespass.
Okay.
They're not a court dealing with trespass. They're not experts on trespass. They can't give a law. They can't order fines and fees and payments based on trespass. Rent or no rent, pay or no rent.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is what it is. They took it. They will give it weight. It's proof of something. So, but we just have to deal with it. You know,
Yeah.
so we got social media posts and Instagram posts, and we got Uber Eats delivery orders, and who ordered it and delivered to this address, and we have receipts and monies, and we're able to fight off that on any evidence that
Oh.
and you go beyond the Call of Duty to get the stuff you needed to win, right? But for me, that was quite the story, because tenants who can prove bad faith evictions can get 1 year's worth of rent as compensation. Rent isn't cheap nowadays. At
Yeah.
$3,000 for 2 bedrooms, at 2005 for one, and then a year's worth of 30 grand, at least, or 30.
Yeah. That's a new car.
Right, and they don't hire a lawyer. They just take pictures and throw it in and say, "Look," and then the landlord's gotta fight it. And if
Mhm.
you don't have a good lawyer that knows about evidence law, you think, yeah, just go and show up and argue. No, you're gonna lose. Yeah. So
So for that case, did you end up winning it
yeah, yeah,
based on Uber Eats receipts?
yeah. And social media. Well, there's other things too, right? You gotta they can also they can say there looks like it's in process of being renovated or not. It's
Right.
really eviction, da 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 da. So all kinds of other things. My client, I think, was a builder too, I think. So that was another level of doubt that you have to dispel,
Right.
builder taken over for with planning for temporary the residence, and then renovating and re-renting at a higher price. And one thing too, just to put it out there, that it's the number one way in which landlords who try to use this way to get higher rents get caught, hence renovictions, is that they post their apartment that they just renovated,
Yeah.
and re-rent it and post it on some rental site on Craigslist or Facebook Media or Marketplace, and they get caught,
Mhm.
because the person who got kicked out is looking at social media advertisements to see whether it's been re-advertised. And you can set up a Google alert, and then if that address pops up, you get alerted. And Google anything, and then you go Facebook Marketplace. I'm interested in this unit. If it shows up, it'll show me the feed that it's listed out. There's ways, and then they get the feed, and then they get in. And oh, look, it's 7 months after I got evicted. I'm gonna get 1 year's worth of compensation. And if that happens, the landlord is in a tough fight. As
Yeah.
it doesn't
Because
matter what excuse you have. Oh, I was gonna have it for my son, but my son decided to go to a different university. Okay, well, you know, eh, then you get into all the other kinds of evidence. Well, where was the rejection notice, and did they have 6 other universities to choose from? And da 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 da. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, that's really good. So we're near the end of the episode. So I just want to ask you more of an open-ended question. So what are some things landlords and tenants should know about that we haven't really covered yet?
Oh, you know what? There's cases, old cases. They're in the residential tenancy board website. You have a case, you have a fact, you want to know how the residential tenancy board had decided upon it in the past. They have to use keywords, they don't put the names of people, they may not even put the address, but they have certain circumstances, the bad faith rent, the tenant, eviction, renovation, cousins, nephew, nieces, family, put all the keywords in and get cases. And for both tenants and landlords alike, the board likes to, refer to decisions that other members have made. They defer more likely to Supreme Court decisions that overturn this or that, but it's there. It's a good source. A
Mm.
second thing is guidelines. They all the board members refer to residential tenancy board guidelines, and they update it periodically. When a new case comes up, they update the guideline. When it comes to renovations, they look at the landlord's tenant notice to tenants for their own use, and they got cases and ways in which board members are instructed and guided on how to make decisions. So it's not a completely open-ended thing. They can do whatever they want. They have to follow the guidelines. And everybody takes the time to read them, depending on, it doesn't matter what section of the act, they have guidelines how to deal with it. Renovations, evictions, occupancy permits for builders who want to kick a tenant out of the building, the decisions and guidelines to the arbitrators. It's very, very good. And third and last thing is just case law. There's publicly accessible case law. Now, you don't have to pay hundreds of dollars like in the past when I started as a lawyer, you had to pay money to access court databases. And then you had to find out whether or not it's been overturned or appealed and changed or distinguished. They have a website called Canly, CANLII.org, free access. And it's a project of, I think, legal education for all kind of society, right? So people can access Supreme Court decisions that deal with BC, that deal with landlord tenancy, and how the courts, and if you bring that case that overrides our arbitrator's decision, yeah, very powerful to have. Then everybody have access to it. You don't need a lawyer to look at it.
So those are great tips.
Yeah.
Those sound really complicated though. So I'm probably one of those people where it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna hire a lawyer and let a lawyer deal with it. So for those who feel the same way, what's the best way to contact you?
Oh, yeah. So, gee, wonder if I can have my website has a link and has access to not only I have a YouTube channel, so I have a lot of stuff, including residential tenancy board updates and discussions about new laws and case law in Cantonese and also in English. So, but go to my website, it has links to all my social media, that has links to also the different podcasts and video blogs and training that I do for realtors. So, because quite often realtors ask me how to deal with the legislation in the contracts. So I go to brokerages. So that these are posted invariably eventually at some point on my YouTube channel. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us. And in a way, I hope no one really needs your help, because if they do, then they're probably like in a big issue with either the landlord or tenant. But definitely, I know you help out a lot of people in this area, and we're very thankful for your contribution to the real estate industry.
Yeah, thank you. And then sometimes it's just knowledge too. So if I may say, www.ivenc.com, and then maybe you can educate yourselves and including what I said today, and then give it a shot on your own.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you take care.
Okay, take care.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider giving us a review and subscribing to our podcast on your favorite platform. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Asian Connection Mortgage Podcast.